I feel like Mr. Burns right now, looking down with a sinister smile, tapping my fingers together, saying, "Excellent. That is excellent." Today, we are talking about the Boston Bruins and how they may have signed, at least in the opinion of one Sports Illustrated writer, one of the worst contracts in the entire 2024 offseason. Lego, why do you have to keep on making videos about this? Why do you have to keep on hammering that hammer down? Why can you just not leave this alone? Why can you just go about your day and talk about other stuff? Because it's the off-season, baby. We got nothing else to talk about. We got articles being written, people talking about the contracts, what's good, what's bad. Let's go over onto SI.com. Because Jacob Panturi went out there and wrote this piece from earlier last week. No, this week, 5 days ago, on the 8th. Here are the 3 worst contracts of NHL free agency. And in this piece, you'll find the very self-explanatory 3 different names of contracts signed in this NHL free agency period. Now, if you wanted the spoiler alert, number 1 is listed as Brady Shea of the Nashville Predators. Number 3 is Brandon Montour of the Seattle Kraken. Lots of people all over the social media world have debated whether or not these contracts given out to defensemen were actually all too bad. Is it bad to go out there and commit this amount of term and this amount of money to a guy who's 30 years old like Brandon Montour? Brady Shea is also 30. These guys are going to be on for the long haul. They're both going to be 37 by the time their contracts expire, and those AAV amounts are pretty thick, so you could definitely talk about those 2 as some of the worst contracts, or maybe debatable contracts if you wanted to use that word instead. But let's talk about the second contract that is listed here as the worst in the NHL for free agency. Number 2, Elias Lindholm. This is another example of overpaying for a need. The Boston Bruins need a number 1 center, and they identified Elias Lindholm as the solution. They attempted to trade for him this past season, but couldn't finalize a deal. They only had to wait a few more months to sign him to a massive extension. The Boston Bruins signed Lindholm to a 7-year deal with an AAV of $7.75 million. It's a huge commitment for a player with just 2 seasons of 70 points or more over 11 NHL seasons. He's historically a 50-point player, and the Bruins are paying him like he is Patrice Bergeron. Lindholm will improve the Bruins. That isn't up for debate. He may even reach the 70-point mark again. But there's a far better chance that he underperforms for the next 7 seasons, and the Bruins will still need a number 1 center. Oh boy. You know what? I'm not going to say that Jacob Panturi is a Canucks fan. If you go onto his social media, he writes for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he is based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so I'm going to say that he is likely a Pens fan. So, to see a Pens fan go out there and talk about the Boston Bruins signing Elias Lindholm to what is the second worst contract in free agency, that's kind of amusing to me. Because of course, as a Vancouver Canucks fan, we cannot stop thinking about the what couldas, what shouldas, and what would've beens had any of these guys just re-signed with the Vancouver Canucks. There was already a debate going around as to whether or not Vancouver would be willing to give Lindholm a huge extension to have him stick around, whether or not their dollar amount range was in the $7 million range. We ended up learning that apparently the Canucks did offer him 7x7, but he rejected that and went over to Boston for a 7.7, which also had first-line minutes attached to it. Not just playing behind Miller and Pettersson like he would have in Vancouver, but a guaranteed spot at the top of the lineup. And, I totally get that. It's not a bad thing that Lindholm wants to play more. It's not a bad thing that he wants as much money as he could get as well. It's just for the Boston Bruins, you think about it more in a different light when you consider the fact that Elias Lindholm has only really had one amazing first-line caliber $7.7 million season. And that was the 1 year where he had played with Tkachuk and Gaudreau, having 82 points in 82 games played. Sure, there were other years where he was good and he produced. 64 points in 80 games is not bad, and he was offered a huge $8 million something extension with Calgary because of it, but he ended up not taking it. He wanted more. And a lot of people would debate that Elias Lindholm had bet on himself in this entire process, not signing deals and trying to maximize his value because he feels like he was worth more. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it caused him to lose some dollars, but it puts him in an even worse spot when you consider just how good, quote-unquote, he's really been. Was Elias Lindholm at a point-per-game pace in the playoffs for the Vancouver Canucks? Absolutely. Is that kind of a guy worth $7.7 million? You could say so, but the thing is, that guy only showed up for 13 games in the playoffs. The big sample he had with Vancouver where he was injured and he was ineffective otherwise, that will still be there. And it gives an inkling as to what still may exist in the profile of an Elias Lindholm. This is a guy who's good, definitely. He can play PK, he can snipe a puck once in a while, he puts himself in good spots, but if Lindholm doesn't really have the best players around him to set him up with good opportunities, he's not really going to do much, honestly. Like, you need him to play with guys that can get him the puck in front while he's slithering out to open space. You need guys that can shoot the puck so that Lindholm can tip him out in front. You need guys to shoot the puck or get it on front for rebounds that Lindholm can put in. He's the kind of guy who, I don't want to say is like a passenger, but like, he's the player that if you wanted to say is the worst one on a line of superstars, yeah, you'd probably be right. If Lindholm is playing on your first line, he's probably not going to be the best player on that line. I'm sorry, that's just how it is. And playing in prior seasons with Tkachuk and Gaudreau, we saw that firsthand. We had seen that when he was playing on the power play, and he was getting these points, feeding it out to Brock Besser in front, and we may see similar things happen in Boston here. As a result, even if he's playing with a David Pastrnak or whatever, who likes to shoot the puck himself, who is able to create offense by himself, if he's doing that without the assistance of Lindholm, because he doesn't really need a Lindholm to be able to do the things that Pastrnak can do, does Lindholm actually go out there and best his career high in points? Is that possible? Over the next 7 years? The guy is already 29 years old, so it's not like he's going to get any younger. He'll be 36 by this contract's expiration date. 2032 after all. So, with this in mind, you think about the way Lindholm plays, you think about the impact he could have. Sure, there is value there, and he will be the top-line center of this team, but is he good enough to be a $7.7 million player over the next 7 years? Honestly, you couldn't say no. That's totally fine and valid, but I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as to whether or not this really would be the case here, how Elias Lindholm and his contract is being labeled as one of the worst ones in this year's free agency period. You know, one of the interesting thoughts that I had seen about this free agency class after it concluded was that a lot of these guys getting signed to big money deals, long-term deals, there are names that could potentially age poorly. In the same way that the 2016 free agency class had guys like Kyle Okposo, Louis Eriksson, Milan Lucic, David Backes, Andrew Ladd, like all of these guys got terrible deals. Terrible. They all aged so poorly. A lot of these got bought out. Like, they were not great. And I think this 2024 free agency class does have the potential to backfire in some of these teams in the same way, especially when you think about some of the other contracts that were handed out there, the big defenseman contracts, Elias Lindholm, Nikita Zadorov, still in that same boat as well. Either way, though, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, whether you're a Canucks fan or a Bruins fan. Do you think the Elias Lindholm contract is or will be one of the worst ones of this year's free agency class? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.